Ricochet has found his way back to New Japan, and he will be challenging the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, Zack Sabre Jr. We're going to talk about this return and some comments he's made in a Chris Van Vliet interview. All that and more on today's episode of WrstlXtra.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate. Always joined by my trios team, the Real House of Black Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will, Yeet. And of course, the wise man, say his name, he shall appear, the professor that is Gerard Bonner. I feel as though this show may as well now be an astronomy podcast, because we always seem to talk about this man who is out of this world. Every week for the past maybe 2 months, this man seems to creep into our discussions. What he does each week, obviously then linked with the whole Samantha thing and what happened with that and whatnot. But I feel as though this week there may be a little bit more of a positive spin on the man that is Ricochet. But then I looked at Mex and I'm like, okay, maybe not.
I think there is. I know, I'm with you. I think there is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's this. I think it's the recent comment, the comment that we've probably just seen in the last couple hours. But apart from that, I think what he's done in wrestling, since trying to come after Takeshita, has been a bit more interesting. Mex, I'll let you take the lead on this. Just in terms of what Ricochet has done, the matches, where he's appeared, like what's been happening with the man born Trevor Man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been in and around the place and keeping himself busy in recent weeks. Obviously, like you mentioned, there's the Takeshita stuff, and he has a tag team match on Wednesday night on Dynamite. Takeshita and Carl Fletcher against Ricochet and secret partner. Who could it be? Probably Will Ospreay, who hasn't been on our TVs after the beatdown at the pay-per-view. So yeah, that'll be good. And I think this is another one of the opportunities you get when Ricochet and Will Ospreay are on the same show. You might see them teaming up time to time. I saw a lot of people asking for Matt Sydal, who he was actual IWGP tag partners with back in the day, junior tag team. Yeah. But yeah, I think this is definitely Will Ospreay with obviously the shape of the program, what Will Ospreay has against Don Callis family, Carl Fletcher particularly, and stuff like that. So yeah, and then obviously we had him recently turn up at New Japan. What was it like? Just over the weekend, just early this weekend. He took out Zack Sabre Jr. His music came from behind, suited up, took out Zack Sabre Jr. And yeah, he is going after the IWGP Championship that Zack Sabre Jr. holds at Wrestle Dynasty on the 5th of January. I mean, my immediate reaction, great position for Ricochet. This is what I expect if you're leaving WWE. This is where you should be. Like, not necessarily Japan, but these are the people or the level of people you should be rubbing shoulders with. Again, seemingly from some of those comments he had in his interview, this is where he believes he should be as well, sort of thing. But yeah, I think I want to see more of this. Like recently we had, I think it was on Collision, he had finally an in-ring promo. There's still been promos backstage and stuff, but he looks like he's confident, and there's a certain swagger about him, like that. I'm just thinking someone needs to just be brave enough to piece these jigsaw puzzles together and just let him do it. Like if he crashes and burns, then right, you've had your chance, it's on you. But I think we need to step out of being a bit more. It's like we're being precautionary. Like, he can't talk, or he can't do this, he can't do that. So we're not willing to try. Let's try. Let's try. That's the only way we're going to elevate this guy. And he seems like he's ready to be elevated. So yeah, a lot of good stuff for Ricochet within the last week, and I guess what's going to come up this week as well.
Yeah, of course. He had matches against Leo Rush and Nick Wayne as well in the week. Still coming after Takeshita. That's his big thing right now. But my slight confusion is, and we'll talk about the comments that he made in this interview in a second, but my slight confusion is with the whole Zack Sabre Jr. thing. Is this a heel Ricochet, or is this just a Ricochet making a statement? Like, what is it?
Well, I think it's more of an AEW versus New Japan Ricochet, because that's really kind of the theme of the Wrestle Dynasty card on January 5th. We already know that Kenny Omega will be a part of this. We know that the Young Bucks will be a part of this. It's really being billed, as a crossover show of sorts. And so it's with that actually makes me concerned about this moment, because on one hand, I do think it's a really good look for him to be in the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship conversation. It's really the first time we've seen him fight for a world title in many years. The concern I have is, okay, you're still very much rocking with AEW. And so do we realistically think you could become the world champion? I mean, Jon Moxley did it, sure. Do we think you can actually do it? And that, I think, is the problem that I have, is when Jon Moxley gets the call, we all believe he can become the world champion. When Ricochet gets the call, if it's for the global championship, if it's for the never open weight championship, if it's for the TV championship, we all believe this could happen. The championship, nobody's going Ricochet's your next world champion the day after Wrestle Kingdom. Nobody. And I think that is the bigger problem. How in the next 2 months can he convince us that he is a viable challenger for Zack Sabre Jr. and the world championship?
Oh, that's a tough one, because that's the real thought as well. Because at the moment, with Takeshita, of course, it's the whole international championship. He hasn't won anything yet in AEW. There are a string of guys you could have put in the ring with Zack Sabre Jr. Not necessarily because it's Zack Sabre Jr., but because of the championship. And I was thinking or feeling, though, there's a possibility that this challenger could beat Zack Sabre Jr. Ricochet is definitely not one of them. Just not, and it's not because of his capabilities, but it's where he's positioned right now and all the rest of it. Speaking of his positioning and the comments that we've seen in the last couple of hours, he's had an interview with Chris Van Vliet. I'm sure there's going to be even more stuff to come out from that. But the one thing that we've seen is him talking about one of the reasons why he decided to leave WWE. And he was vocal about the fact that he felt as though he was quite stagnant. And when the new guys who came in from NXT, your Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, Ilya Dragunov, all came in, he felt as though he was slotted in with those guys, even though he had been there in the mix for 5 years plus, whatever it is. What do you say to that? And then where he is now, is it any different?
So I personally think there's a level of, and I've always said this, I've been consistent, I've got videos on my channel saying this, NXT, WWE definitely need to take a level of responsibility in the lack of progression, because Ricochet has been wrestling like this. They haven't taught him how to wrestle in that place. So I don't know. It was NXT simply just a paycheck for him, because what did he develop in? Okay, maybe he learned how to wrestle on TV, but so I don't think they taught him for what he needed to go to the next level. Again, you can point the finger at Ricochet. Like, did he grab the brass ring? Did he really try to do anything, outlandish or really get himself over in any way in WWE? And as well, there's an element of the machine has to be behind you to a degree to get something like that over. but I think there's a lot of people here to blame. I don't know whether he does what I'm about to say or not, but for the sake of argument, let's say he doesn't. We often hear of wrestlers taking on extra things like acting classes that will help them with, you know, speaking and things like that. I don't know if he does anything like that, but it's never really been documented that he does. So I think now for him to think that he's been banded in the same, you know, of those new guys coming up, from a viewer on TV, I don't personally get that. I don't feel like that's true. I think he was referred to in his last few days in WWE, last few appearances, as like a elder statesman that's been here, you know, ruled the mid card across those championships there. I don't think he's ever kind of banded or seen as one of those guys. However, those guys all have an element of X Factor. You know, Carmelo Hayes came up with an element of X Factor. Bron Breakker looks like a ready WWE champion right now. Ilya, just the way he performs is, you know, all he's got. But even if he looks at Ilya, he will see that Ilya didn't kind of light the world on fire on the main roster in his first few appearances before, obviously, now he's injured. So I don't really like the whole blame game stuff. You know, they abandoned me like this, or blah, blah, blah. Everyone has a part to play, including WWE, including Ricochet. In terms of, what he's doing now, it isn't much different to answer your question in terms of positioning. Like I said, I saw him come out at All In with Pyro, and I already thought, this guy's a main eventer because we ain't spending Pyro on anybody. So this guy's a main eventer. And okay, he didn't win that particular match he was in, but then the following week, I think it was, he wasn't even on TV. Or the week after, maybe the first TV debut. So it's just like, you can come here and have great matches. Okay, now you're banded around these Takeshita's and Will Ospreays and stuff like that. But let's be honest, you're not beating Takeshita either. You're not beating Takeshita for the international title. So, they had to like prop you up day one for us to feel like you're anything different. Like almost how, Okada came in, didn't win the world title, but more or less won the continental title immediately. They needed to do something like that at the very minimum to make us think, okay, this is a big deal. Like they'll keep him here for a bit, like they have with Will, like they have with Mercedes, but sooner or later he will ascend to where he needs to be. And I don't think he's in any better positioning. Like you said, the New Japan thing, Gerard, like you said, looks great on paper, but we know he's not beating Zack. If this was Naito still champion, we might think, okay, maybe. But he ain't beating Zack. So I feel like he's doing all the right things though, and I wasn't quite convinced like a matter of a month ago that this was much different. But I can now see just in his how he kind of carries himself. He's doing the right things. Now the opportunity just needs to come. Someone needs to back him to then take it to the next level.
And that's one of the things that he said as well, when making these comments, is like he said, you know, it wasn't kind of like a bidding war and he's going where the most money was, but where he would be excited again, feel that spark again. And I can see why, obviously going somewhere new. And while it's new, it's also where a lot of old friends are as well. And it opens up the doors, opportunities like going back to Japan. That's the second time he's gone back to Japan as well. He linked up with one of his old tag team partners about a month ago as well, before. And that's obviously not something that would have happened if he was still in WWE, regardless if he was, climbed higher on the card. So, Joe, do you still think that there's, as Mick said, we can see that there's some kind of difference, and we can see in him the way he's carrying himself? Do you feel that still justifies him leaving, or you seeing that being a better decision for him to make?
Justifies, not necessarily, based on whatever his reasoning is. His reasoning being, I felt like, I was just being treated like a Dragunov, and in my head, I'm like, well, don't dismiss them because we view them as incredible. And so if you're in that same sentence, that's actually a good thing.
Very good.
I think that Ricochet isn't actually addressing the real problem here. And the real problem is I cannot recall a wrestler in the history of pro wrestling who wrestles the style of Ricochet and became a world champion. That is the real issue here. Think about this. The only one you could possibly make the argument about is Rey Mysterio. And there are those who made that argument that it was more so connected to the passing of Eddie Guerrero and honoring Eddie Guerrero than it was Rey Mysterio's actual. And here's the reason why. Because when you're in that high flyer acrobatic category, you are a special attraction. Right. People come to see you flip and do all these cool moves and all of those kinds of things, but they don't necessarily believe you're going to be the giant slayer. They don't believe that you're the superhero that they can, put all of their things behind. They don't believe that you're going to be the face of the company. That is the real issue. Think about all of the high flyers and death-defying things that happen in AEW currently. And how many of them have been the world champion? Not even Will Ospreay. And I think that is the real issue here. Ricochet isn't Will. And here's what's interesting. Now, you could make the argument that Will Ospreay made the changes because of injuries and things of that nature. But once he made changes to his style, that's when he became a world champion over in New Japan.
Right.
But it wasn't while he was flipping and doing all the highlight reel things. He had to get a ground game, and he had to add an element to him that made people go, oh, snap, this guy can be our world champion. That's the real issue surrounding Ricochet. It's not even whether or not he can talk. It's can he amend his game enough to where the high-flying pieces aren't the normal parts of what he does. It's something he might pull out and here's why you can't give somebody like that the world championship, because they will get injured much faster than anybody else. We just saw that with Vikingo a couple of weeks ago, right? So I think he, being Ricochet, is going to have to address that part of things. Can you be the kind of wrestler that can be the world champion, that has a dope enough mat game to where people believe, oh, you can take down this one, that one, and the other one. Oh, and you have a high-flying piece in your background. That's not your leading card. That, I believe, is the real issue, that he's not willing to amend that particular style. And so you can't be a world champion in the WWE, in AEW, in TNA, or even in New Japan with that kind of style. Again, I note the only time that Will Ospreay was a world champion is when he amended his style over in New Japan. And it's honestly one of the reasons we consider him as world championship material now in AEW, because he brought that same style over.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting, because, when I look at what he's done in New Japan and all the different titles and tag team championships and all the rest of it, and he was never close in any way, shape, or form to the world championship whatsoever. No. And it's not something that I realized until you said it. Like even with Will Ospreay, the same thing. He's now got a much more vicious streak to him, which is a lot more believable when taking on anyone, however big or small, however experienced, however special, whatever style they use. Will Ospreay's style just makes sense now. And as we've seen over the last year, probably longer, the level of matches he has with anyone that you put in the ring with, you know what I mean? And I think that might be a massive thing. And the furthest he was going to get on any WWE card was going to be, mid-card championships, intercontinental, maybe have an opportunity at a world championship, but I'm sure whatever that opportunity was, no one was going to look at it and think.
Well, think about he got one opportunity. It was at a Saudi pay-per-view, and it was against Brock Lesnar.
It wasn't going to happen, was it? Really? Come on.
It was a squash. The match didn't last. I think one thing, just to Gerard's point there about, you know, kind of changing up his in-ring game, and we've talked about this. I guess our most recent example was Trinity Naomi with returning to WWE. Pretty much still the Glow character.
Yeah.
Now, please correct me if I'm wrong. Apart from the stint where he wore a mask as Prince Puma and became a champion over there in Mexico, conveniently where he didn't need to talk. Ricochet has been Ricochet as we know him, Indies, WWE, AEW. Yes, there might be attitude, heel tendencies, and stuff like that, but like even the character has never kind of evolved. We haven't had something from like a Dean Ambrose to a John Moxley,
right?
Or even from, you know, Jay White being the young boy and then turning on Chaos and becoming the big heel switchblade Jay White. Will Ospreay, you know, the evolution he went through to becoming a faction leader, winning a world title. Like, this is just somebody that he's just been Ricochet sort of thing. And that doesn't help either. You leave these companies, you have the opportunity. Like, okay, we know there will be crossovers, like me, you guys that will watch everything or whatever, but some people don't know you. You have the opportunity to put a brand new impression on these people. Like, he can still be Ricochet by name, but a whole new attitude sort of thing. And look at Shelton Benjamin. Look at Shelton Benjamin.
Perfect example.
Let's go.
Come on, like, you should be like, why can't you come over here and say, I've been over there, you know, the grass isn't greener over there. Just show us something different. And Ricochet is strong. If even this is the moveset he has, if you deep the moveset, he is a pretty strong guy that can pick up people and looks very comfortable doing it, a very safe worker. Like, but there's just no evolution. Like, okay, he puts a suit on, he'll look fly, but it's there's not enough there character-wise either, apart from, and maybe it's the name. Maybe a man called Ricochet, that, you know, something we kind of coined with bouncing around and all of that kind of stuff, can't be this heel or grounded character and have that kind of thing, because the name kind of determines, you know, a kind of perception as to what we're going to get when we're dealing with a guy called Ricochet. But there needs to be an evolution there, sort of thing. And to be honest, I'm happy, like I said, with what I've been seeing, but I think it needs to be a harder, like, just do it, like, as opposed to kind of tinkering and testing it out. Like, yeah.
For me, the one thing I think is working, and the one thing that I always like in anyone's kind of story is kind of, you know, literally the chase for the championship, or at least kind of proving that you're good enough to then challenge a champion. And as you know, he's set his sights on Takeshita, but it's not been a thing where, you know, he's attacked him one week and then he's fighting him the next week. You know what I mean? I think that would have been detrimental. But I think with the way he's going, that's happening now, he's beating a Sammy Guevara, Nick Wayne, Leo Rush, so-and-so, you know, all these different people who have decent reputations, some very great, some still upcoming, all the rest of it. But it still adds to, you know, his credibility. As much as Ricochet is Ricochet, but he's in a new place, so he has to prove himself in this new place. So I think that part of it is working. But yeah, I still feel as though it's kind of like the goal still feels too low. It shouldn't be the international championship. You know what I mean? Or if it is the international championship, that should actually happen quickly, and then we get to the next stage. Like we had with Will Ospreay as well. Right. You know what I mean? So it's a tough one. It as you already said, Max, like, it's kind of going the right way. We're seeing signs of it now making a little bit more sense, or it going a good way, but it still feels a little too slow. It still feels as though we're dealing with the exact same guy that we saw enter NXT, let alone in the WWE. You know what I mean? The same guy who's got. I'm still waiting for him to do a promo where he jumps over the top rope and stands in someone's face on the aisle. Like, I'm expecting
Mhm.
that same thing to happen again, because that's just what we know, and that's probably the best thing he's ever done. And that's the worrying part. That was way back in, you know what I mean, almost 10 years ago. So you just like, yeah, and I think that's the issue. As you said, you know, we've seen a Shelton Benjamin, and we were all wondering, yeah, what can Shelton Benjamin do, and how is he going to be anything different? And he was who he was in WWE in his last couple of years there. Now we're like, oh, okay,
Well,
it can work.
We're gonna talk about the Hurt Syndicate in it, but I'm at the point now, yeah, where I was actually annoyed last week. Bobby Lashley has come in.
Yeah,
I want to see Shelton.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Yeah. No, for real. And you know what? And here's the thing. Let's get into it. You know, we saw Bobby Lashley make his appearance after Shelton Benjamin versus Shane Strickland, Swerve Strickland even. Was it done correctly? Was it the right timing? Mex, you already kind of given your opinion. Elaborate on that just a little bit more. Like, do you feel as though it was the right timing in general, not just because of how we now see Shelton Benjamin, but just in general, in terms of how this whole thing is, you know, how the whole story is kind of playing out?
I think it's good. I think as the rumors were, what was the last pay-per-view? Where are we? Wrestle Dream. That they didn't want to debut Lashley there just because of everything else that had happened on the show. They wanted to give him his own spot. I thought the debut in itself looked brilliant. Like, Lashley just keeps himself in great shape, all the lighting and everything. I thought they smashed it with that completely. Yeah, it's just Shelton Benjamin, although it's literally been 2 matches plus the Swerve match, I just thought, nah, I'm loving this. Not that he's even the front man, but just like him being the focus, I guess, right now. And that's, I'm just like, oh, I wish that Bobby Lashley couldn't come in, or we just get more of this before Bobby comes in. Swerve was always gonna win the match, find a way to win the match, and I think that's fine. But obviously Hurt Syndicate looks strong in the finish with Lashley coming out and then beating down on Swerve, beating down on Nana, beating down on the security, reminiscent of that Retribution beatdown that they gave, like their crowning moment of being the Hurt Business in WWE before it was taken from us. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to what they're gonna say, their mission statement, I guess, tomorrow night. And yeah, just maybe who else they can possibly add. I saw I was watching Collision the other day, and I saw Max Castoff flaunt that he's got a MVP business card, and he's saying maybe. And I was just like, okay, like he's winding me up, but I have to admit he's doing a good job at winding me up. Right. So yeah, I wouldn't want to see him join them, but yeah, I think there's good options up and down the card. On a side note, why I don't understand why STP are growing now at the same time where the Hurt Syndicate has just come into effect. Like, I don't know if they're gonna do like eventually go up against each other, and I have no issue with STP expanding and getting a more prominent position. It's just like we could have done this the entire time. Like, why now when the Hurt Syndicate are obviously going to be the focus, sort of thing. But yeah, I'm looking forward to what they're gonna do. It's looking promising so far.
So within AEW, we kind of know now we've got this whole elite thing going on. We've got this whole thing with I don't know if they're still Blackpool Combat Club, Moxley and his friends. You know, then you've got all these AEW guys who are upset that the elite aren't doing anything, trying to fight, you know, Moxley and the rest. How does the Hurt Syndicate fit into all of this in a sense where do they get into the mix? Will they be forgotten about because all of this is going on? Like, Gerard, how do you think this is going to work for them?
I think they get a chance to stand alone. I really do. Not involve themselves, as Booker T would say, in the business that doesn't concern them. You know, the future of AEW is not their concern right now. Their concern is establishing their own space such that, you know, if somebody steps to them, they'll be able to handle themselves. it kind of reminds me of, the mention of Retribution. When Retribution was doing what they did, they were kind of just running roughshod, and nobody could handle them until they ran into the Hurt business. And so there's a part of me that wonders if the Hurt Syndicate is just kind of quietly building their ranks and doing what they need to do, such that if somebody steps to them, they take them out, no matter who it is, and they become the unsung heroes in all of this. So I think they just have to keep, it's funny because the Elite hasn't involved themselves in this AEW war, and so I think that the Hurt Syndicate isn't required to do that. They can keep fighting their own battles. We're still trying to figure out what it is that they're here to do. They need to let us know and figure out who they're going to beat up in the process. There are plenty of people for them to mess with outside of Jon Moxley and his whole campaign. And we still don't fully know what that campaign is about. But I'm intrigued. I will say that the storytelling has been very, very good on that. But yeah, I think what MVP and the Hurt Syndicate has done is they've created a level of interest in the AEW product that did not exist previously. And there are people who are now tuning in just to see what the Hurt Syndicate's going to do. And that's a win.
And I find it still unreal that almost every week MVP seems to find someone new to offer a business card to. It's amazing that there's that many people that and every single one of them has felt like, oh, actually, yeah, they would look good, or I can see how they would fit in, or maybe if you switch that for that person, they would fit in, and you know what I mean. So that in itself makes it interesting. But what do you think the goal is? What are you? Is there anything that we can expect to hear from them? I'm sure we're here with the whole thing of, we're here to make money, we're here to win championships. But what are those championships? Could it be a trios championship with the three that are there now, or they add someone else and that's trios? Does Bobby Lashley go for the world championship? Does Shelton go for the continental or the international? Like, what do you think is the realistic goal for them right now?
I think this is the beauty of having 17,000 championships in AEW. Whichever title you go for, it's gold. It looks good around your waist, and you can theoretically build up to whatever gold they get around their waist is going to make them look good right now. So if they go after the TNT championship, that'll automatically upgrade the TNT title. If they go after the tag titles, the hurting they would put on Private Party. Ooh, yes. Like the options are there in terms of what they could do. The Continental Championship, they have a lot of cool things. And with Swerve currently not in the picture, then they could pick and choose what they want to go after. Right now, I think they need at least one or two more people in that group. I don't see MVP actively wrestling on that roster. So they're going to need a couple of people. Other than that, they could go after a couple of singles titles or some tag titles, but they need a few more people to kind of really dominate as they have the ability to do.
I don't know who this person is. And no shade against Cedric Alexander, because I think Cedric's great. But I think they need another person, but the person's positioning needs to be superior to what Cedric was to the Hurt business.
Okay,
I think they need to bring in, we know Shelton was furniture of this faction. We know the same with Bobby Lashley that he was going to come in. I think the third person needs to wow us to an extent. I wouldn't mind the third person being Ricochet, to be completely honest with you. But I think the third person needs. Yeah. I think the third person needs to make us think like, wow. Like, obviously, Chris Bay would have been like a kind of like the wow factor. Like, wow, you've brought in someone that we really think is, again, would fit into the mold of fantastic wrestler. Could possibly be someone that could one day overthrow Bobby Lashley as the leader of the faction and go on to like being a world champion. I think we need that kind of prospect in the Hurt Syndicate to add to what these guys have.
Powerhouse Hobbs.
Powerhouse Hobbs.
It's a shout. Maybe physically he's too similar to Lashley. But that is one of the people for sure that should be considered. Now,
if they really do this right, Ricky Starks.
Okay, now we're talking. We're talking.
Yeah,
If they do this right,
it.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to stop that crew.
Yeah. Oh man, no, that would be because my thinking would be, of course, obviously it's not going to happen now during AEW, but the only other person for me that could have, ticked every single box would be like Montez Ford, for example. You know what I mean? Like perfect future prospect, future potential. Done so much currently already. Knows he's good on the mic. Know he can wrestle and hang with almost anyone. Wanting to see them propel into the next level. Montez Ford would be perfect. So I think Ricky Starks as well fits that exact same bill. Ticks every single one of those same boxes as well. Unfortunately, obviously, we don't know. He's not been around too much. Do you see that that there's anyone else in AEW kind of fits that bill though?
I think there's stock in putting Leo Rush in there.
I was going to say Leo Rush.
I know he may not tick everyone's box in terms of like a world champion or whatever, but I definitely think there is stock in putting Leo Rush in there as well. And if Will Hobbs would be, I guess, a better, more refined, ready kind of option. But what's his name now? Oh my god, it literally just left me. He's down on Ring of Honor. Tags with what's his face?
Oh, you're talking about and he
He was
in a Nightmare Factory.
Lee Johnson.
Yeah. Like someone like that could be like they would play, I guess, more of a Cedric role. But like he needs the exposure at the same time. So could develop. But yeah, there is options. It's like you were saying that, MVP always find someone to hand the card to. And now this is another point I was gonna raise. AEW is becoming the home of black wrestlers.
Yeah. Slowly.
The irony of that
slowly is crazy. It's crazy, and that's what I meant when I said what I said.
Yeah, like literally, like when you look at it and mention all the names and all the talents and everyone he is still obviously finding time to hand the card to is black. AEW is the home of black wrestlers, and now I know someone like you mentioned Montez Ford. Yeah. He's attached at the hip to his wife Bianca Belair, who is a massive face of the company in WWE. So I wouldn't expect him to necessarily up and leave. Stranger things have happened though, but it only takes something like this for him to see, like, Swerve has been champion over there. They're putting stock into this person. They have a whole black faction over here. They do it. Maybe that is the place for me to go.
Possible.
If you're looking from the outside right now, it makes sense over there from what you can see. So yeah,
I mean, think about this. Like, if in a year or so the positioning of Carmelo Hayes doesn't change or gets worse, he could easily go over there. He wouldn't have an issue going over there. He was in Ring of Honor. There was talk of him going to AEW, being signed to AEW before he went to NXT. All that kind of stuff. And with the stock that he's built for himself now, it would be a big enough move to make publicity and all the rest of it for him to go there. If the Hurt Syndicate are doing what they're doing, and we had the ramblings when they were trying to bring back the Hurt business in WWE, he was the name on the top of everyone's list. You know what I mean? So something like that could possibly happen. And it's crazy because you mentioned Lee Johnson, and I've always when Lee Johnson went up against Carl Fletcher for the ROH TV Championship. Brilliant. I was like, right, he needs to join STP now. Now that the Hurt Syndicate are brown, he needs to join them now. And I'm just like, there needs to be something. Gerard's got something that he needs to share.
I don't want to be that guy.
Be the guy.
But I just decided, let me dig a little bit.
Okay.
Apparently, and this is recent. Interesting. Apparently, it's believed that Montez Ford's WWE contract expires in December.
As in this year.
As in this year.
As in next month.
As in next month. And there's an interview that's floating out there that he has been vocal about being unhappy with what's currently happening with the Street Profits. So,
like I said, stranger things have happened. I think he's one of these people.
I don't think he'll go anywhere, but
yeah, especially because of his wife. I think he's almost kind of wedded to the company right now. And just as those two's relationship, as we've seen it, they're joined at the hip. So I can't imagine him going anywhere. However, as a man, that you would have your own goals, you want to achieve something. You are the actual wrestling fan in your household. You know, you would look and just think, right. Of course, there's the landscape. Where would I fit in and stuff like that? But black people are being treated well. Black people are being treated well over there.
There's a place for him alongside MVP. It's not even a case of where do I fit in. Someone's got a space ready for you to fit in. And if he goes there, he would literally take the same space. For me, my mind, in terms of especially potential, where they're looking to push him, the same space that Ricky Starks had when Collision started.
Yeah.
I can't see it any other way. And I'm sure, especially with how the Hurt Syndicate, MVP, Shelton, Bobby have kind of been portrayed already, MVP has not, held back on his words and what he wants when negotiating whatever he's been negotiating with AEW. That's very clear. That's very, very clear. This doesn't feel as though Tony Khan is necessarily calling the shots. Yes, he's the head booker and he'll have the final say, but it's clear that there are certain things happening that MVP is like, unless this is happening, unless it goes this way, we're not coming.
Yeah, this product feels different than what we've seen from AEW over the last 5 years. So somebody else somewhere is calling the shots. I don't know who, but it's definitely somebody else.
Interesting. Interesting. I mean, I don't see Montez Ford going anywhere at all. But as you said, you know what I mean? Other things have happened, and as much as Ricochet and Samantha are obviously still not married yet, and obviously their relationship has been a lot shorter than Montez and Bianca. Ricochet went the other way while Samantha stayed for a little bit, but Samantha stayed. So it's not impossible. We've seen it happen before with others, with married couples as well. One goes one way, one goes the other, or stays in the same place. It depends on their opportunities and what they feel is best for themselves. And if it really came down to it, I could see Bianca. I can't see Bianca holding Montez back and saying, "No, you're not going anywhere." No, she'd probably send him. She'd probably tell him to go,
pack his bags, and be like,
go. Go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
and undoubtedly, if Montez bites the bullet and goes, and one day returns to WWE, he walks into the main event. Like,
easily.
He strolls in there.
Minimum Intercontinental Championship. Minimum that mid-card championship.
I'd have to think, because I'd have to think by whatever he's going to do in AEW, they would have to see like his value. His value alone would put him in there. What they would have to pay him to come back in, you're a main eventer at that point. So it's one of them ones where he just has to bite the bullet. I've just seen here in the comments, big up Brands. He says, feel like if there was another year left on his deal, he'd consider. Maybe it has come too early. That December is too early. But you never know.
You
never know.
But then you've got to think to yourself as well. We saw the documentary that they did, Bianca and Montez. That was all filmed this time last year before WrestleMania. So you've got to think.
Well, even earlier than that, actually. Yeah.
And he was 39.
Right.
It was. Oh gosh, even that. And he was complaining about his position then. Has it changed in 2 years? It's probably gotten worse.
Yeah,
probably gotten worse. There's been a little glimmer of hope maybe in the last 2 months because they've been messing with the tag team championships and blah blah blah. But this last 2 years for the Street Profits, it's probably been their worst. Let's be real. And the whole thing with the pride and the no name and the clothes changing and not knowing how to book them or the face or heels and putting so and so with them and did it, all of that. there is no way he's sat back and be like, yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm good. Not at all. So I don't think that it's too early for him to actually consider leaving, to be fair. I actually don't
If he
think
hasn't
it's
already
too early.
decided.
Yeah, of course.
That's
It's possible. It's
Mm-hmm.
possible. I think definitely another year of this stagnant thing would be more or less the be all and end all. But I think, yeah, there's still a possibility. I don't know how strong, but there's a possibility. It's interesting. I just want to see him be better. I just want to see him be used better. That's all. I don't care where it is. But the fact that now we've got the Hurt Syndicate kind of gives you a space to feel as though, right, there's a place for him. If there was no Hurt Syndicate, I'd still be like, you know what? Just negotiate position better in WWE and stay where you are. Now I'm like, there's a space for you, mate. So think about it. Interesting indeed. Interesting indeed. Taking ourselves away from the Hurt Syndicate from AEW, but we mentioned her just now. Bianca Belair and Crown Jewel was over the weekend on Saturday, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill managed to retain their WWE Women's Tag Team Championships against 4 other teams. And going on from that, had a very interesting run, or segment, should I say, on Raw just last night as well, with the Women's World Champion, Liv Morgan, and Raquel Rodriguez. Gerard, where does this go? I mean, for me, I'll say this. For me, when Jade came out, when Liv was having a little celebration talk, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, why? It was all a bit weird then. They explained it. They had a win, the night before, blah, blah, all the rest of it. Great stuff. And that there was a run-in at some point last week between them all as well. So it made there was some sense made of it. Okay, cool, let's go. But it carried on further. They had this number one contenders battle royal. Liv and Rodriguez seem to have cost Jade and Bianca by eliminating them. No disqualification, of course, even though they weren't in the match. We had a bit of a stare down. Where do we go from here? What are we getting? Is Liv about to take the titles from Jade and Bianca?
This has potential to get very, very interesting. We got, for the first time since the Royal Rumble, a stare down between Jade and Bianca, where it looked like they were actually going to battle. And then it looks like we could end up with Jade and Bianca versus Liv and Raquel. It could go a number of ways. I mean, you have a Liv Morgan right now who's on top of the world. She's officially declared her revenge tour over. She's done everything she intended to do. She is the women's world champion. She's the women's crown jewel champion. It only makes sense that she'd want to be a women's tag team champion. Of course, her and Raquel have done that before. This could be a way to get the championships off of Bianca and Jade and put them in that feud that a lot of people want to see. But from where I sit, I don't want to see that feud anymore. I don't want to see that feud anymore because there's a couple of other things that I would rather see. And one of the things I found myself preferring to see is if I'm going to see Jade Cargill across the ring from somebody, by God, it better be that Lash Legend. You hear me? Because that Lash Legend, good Lord, okay? Lash Legend. You know, what's so intriguing to me, and I've got a video I'm doing about this, but the thing that's so intriguing to me about Lash Legend is in this world where we've got Julia, where we've got Zarya, where we've got Stephanie Vacour, when you've got Roxanne Perez, Cora Jade, all of these women, Jordan Grace, infiltrating NXT's women's division, the star of Lash Legend is born. And when I saw Lash Legend stand across from Jade Cargill, I was like, that is what I need in my life right now. The Meta Girls came in. They act like they belong. because they do belong. So for me, we don't need to go with this antiquated thought of Jade versus Bianca. No need, not necessary. Bianca can do whatever she wants to do. If they want to stay tag champion, so be it. And if this turns into Liv and them winning the tag titles, whatever. The bigger story to me is Jade and Lash. That's the match we need to see. Those are the moments we need in our lives. And don't fall victim to giving us what an old plan was. That plan doesn't work anymore.
Max.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I will have a Jade Cargill versus Bianca feud. However, you've got to make me care about it again. You've got to make me want to see that again. Because right now I don't want to see it. I don't care for it at all. Lash is what I want to see. Jade Cargill is what I want to see. And I think we're saying this in past weeks. I think now WWE have realized this is actually the two that are more alike rather than a Jade and Bianca. Like these are the two that are actually more similar. You know, started wrestling in maybe about a year's gap, 18 months gap of one another. Like this is what we should be kind of putting up as our battle of, I guess, who's next up or whatever the case is. It was a great point you raised, Gerard, in terms of amongst all of these superstar names and names that have been fed to us through NXT TV and stuff. Lash has kind of leapfrogged them on NXT, you know, rose her star on the main roster, and we'll go back down to NXT. And once she maybe ties up this story with the tag team situation, will firmly be in the conversation for a women's championship match and, you know, contesting with some of those ladies. So this has only been like a very positive experiment. Again, it speaks volumes to the good kind of continuity they do with now, you know, introducing NXT stars on the main roster and stuff like that. As for the tag team championships and stuff, I'm getting the feeling that they are very high on Liv Morgan right now. Even for Liv Morgan to beat Nia Jax for this title, and you can see how much she was crying and how much it meant to her and all of that kind of stuff for a title that effectively she's already left behind in the country she left it in. Like I feel like they're very high on Liv Morgan and trying to push her through. So I wouldn't be surprised if they give her this accolade with Raquel, maybe especially with Rhea Ripley now injured with the orbital thing with her eye. This could be something they give Liv Morgan to just hold in the meantime to keep her busy, sort of thing, while Rhea is out. But yeah, then the question would be, where does Bianca and Jade go from there? But they're definitely teasing dissension. Maybe they are beginning to just start teasing it to work our way slowly towards WrestleMania. Maybe that's what they've got penciled in for WrestleMania. It was off the back of that WrestleMania documentary that they finally put out in the middle of this year that Triple H said WrestleMania 40 was written in October before The Rock came in and started changing things and whatever the case is. So you would assume by today, November the 5th, WrestleMania 41 has been written. They know what they want to do, and we are maybe, you know, beginning to start see the beginning of that. So that there might be some actual dissension there leading to this match. We'll have to see.
It's interesting, you know, because I was thinking when I'm seeing this kind of face off between the four ladies on Raw yesterday, I'm thinking to myself, well, for Liv to even now consider the tag team championships after she's gone on the heights and the journey that she's gone on speaks volumes for what Jade and Bianca have done for that tag team championship. You know what I mean? And I think that in itself is a massive thing that we need to look at and definitely give them their flowers on that in, you know, alone. I wouldn't have an issue with Liv and Raquel becoming tag team champions and Liv kind of bragging about having everything and all that kind of stuff. And again, I wouldn't be too upset if we got to Mania and it was Jade versus Bianca, but I think in the middle, what happens from now until then is very, very important.
Yeah.
Has to be very, very important. It can't be them slugging it out every week or whatever it is. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see this back and forth with them every single week. You would need to put, Jade versus Lash or Bianca in a feud, probably trying to get number one contendership or something like that. Like, there has to be something that they do separately in order for us to think, all right, when they meet again or when the dissension actually happens, then I have to care about it. And I've never been one to make this whole thing a thing from the start. Never been a fan of it. I wanted to see Jade ascend and do her own thing, do whatever she needed to do for us to then get to Bianca and be like, right, this is kind of almost like the mountaintop. I've beaten this person, I've beaten that person, I've maybe won this or maybe done that, achieved this, achieved that. Now, me and you can go toe to toe. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. WWE have done a great job over the last couple of years in kind of giving us, hints at friends breaking up or factions breaking up and not getting it like straight away. So there may be, a much longer story in all of this. But it's nice to see that they're gonna, that they're throwing it in there a little bit. We've seen that with Nia Jackson and Tiffany. You know what I mean? Like their whole little thing has been going on for a while, and not to the point where you're like, all right, just do it now. It's not even like that. It still feels as though they can still kind of, keep it going for a little bit longer. So that's going to be interesting to see how it all works. As for Lash Legend, I'm almost worried. I'm almost worried that she's as good as she is. And I'll tell you what, we mentioned all those names in NXT, all those women. Me and Gerard talked about all of them last week as well. You know what I mean? And the fear is almost, where does she fit in? So we have an idea where we would put her in, but it's not kind of in a sense of undeniable. You know what I mean? She could easily go back to NXT and not necessarily be at the top of the women's card. It's possible. Because you've got the whole what are they called again? Fatal something or the other.
Fatal Influence.
Fatal Influence. I always think Fatal Attraction. Don't know the movie. I always think Fatal Attraction. Yeah, you got Fatal Influence. You've got Lola Vice. You've got Jada Parker. You've got everyone there. You've got all the girls that are going to be in this 10-woman match as well on Wednesday. And as great as Lash has been, and as amazing as it's been to see it, for me, it's not like she's definitely, as soon as she goes back in, top of the card, or getting a so-and-so opportunity as soon as she goes back in. Where do we actually go with her from here? Like, does it feel as though it is undeniable?
It's undeniable that she belongs on Raw or SmackDown. That's undeniable.
Okay.
I mean, to me, think about it. Okay. These were the first two women or first two NXT anything to go to Saudi on a pay-per-view, on a PLE.
True.
That spoke volumes to me. And not just, I mean, it's one thing to have someone from NXT on a main roster PLE, but in of all places, Saudi, where we know, you have to really not slip on a banana peel as a woman there. You have to make sure you're covered. You have to make sure you're not too, suggestive or anything else like that. Matter of fact, I got a little nervous last night during the Battle Royal when Maxine Dupree, who was covered, started, grinding her hips. I was like, ma'am, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're gonna get
So did I.
Thing taken away. What are you doing? You know what I mean? So to think that an NXT talent figured that out before a current existing main level talent says a lot. So I think they're ready. You don't have to try to fit them back into NXT. They don't have to win a championship in NXT to prove their worth. They've already done it. Put them straight away on the main roster because there's nobody else on the main roster like them. That's where they stand out. They don't have to try to fit in there with Zarya and all these people. No, Let them hang over there where they've already proven they can hang with a damage control. They've proven they can hang with Piper and Chelsea. Like, they've proven that. So let them do that. That's where they need to go.
True. Very true.
What
Very
what
true.
I would do with them is maybe a hybrid of exactly that. I probably keep them together, but they win the women's tag championships. And they have shown that they're prepared to put in the work and be across the 3 brands of WWE.
Yeah.
And I let them continue doing that. You're going to still be in NXT for the level of development. But I'm going to let you take that women's tag title and go on SmackDown when necessary and Raw when necessary, sort of thing. That will buy them time. We know the likes of a Jordan Grace is joining the ranks in January or so. So yeah, it's nothing that they're going to shoot to. And then, you don't wish injury on anyone. But if they drop the women's tag team titles and then Lash Legend just goes for a singles title, what's Jakara gonna do in the meantime, sort of thing? So it's one of them ones where there is time. There is time, but I think with this last stint or these last few weeks, they've been recognized, they've been trusted, they've repaid the trust. So at the very least, I think a women's tag run now across the brands where they can still reap the benefits from being in all of those brands, whatever they bring them, would be best right now, whilst we're especially waiting for that NXT queue to move along. The likes of Roxanne will probably be gone by early next year. Main roster, she might get her straight after Royal Rumble. Roxanne might be done in NXT. Definitely by WrestleMania, I think. We won't see her down there anymore. Yeah, we have to move some women along. Not all of those women mentioned that we're talking about are going to be NXT champions. That's just the fact of the matter. Not all of them will be. But yeah, Lash is, I think, after that conglomerate of names we mentioned, Julia, Vaca, Jordan Grace, Roxanne, Lash is of the next lot. She may have surpassed the likes, and this might be controversial, of a Kalani Jordan, who was on a trajectory for me. I don't think her North American title run was necessarily good enough to say, right, she's ready to take that step up.
No, not yet. No.
Yeah, I think it was just a good run, good matches, but character-wise and stuff, I don't feel like we got enough. And I feel like in some of those departments, Lash might have is ahead right now. Fallon Henley, we're going to see what her title run is. Personally, I'm big on Fallon, but we'll see how that comes out. So yeah, she has to do a bit of waiting anyway, but definitely putting her best foot forward right now.
Yeah, for sure. There's spaces for them to be in, and I can even see personally, like if they were to win the tag team championships, that they'll probably still be on NXT more than on the main roster. Yeah, it'll probably be a few months, a few weeks, or whatever it is, with them actually facing more of the NXT girls than any main roster, or every now and again main roster coming to NXT to challenge them, and not necessarily them going to the main on the main roster shows. Possible. There's many spaces for them to be in. Just to end on this one as well, we're talking about NXT. Obviously, we're going to see NXT is on Wednesday this week. Of course, it's Decision Day in America, Election Day as well today. So they're moving it to tomorrow. It's obviously going to be in the ECW arena. We've got some special guests and appearances happening that we know of already. Bubba Ray is going to be teaming with Trick Williams. We're going to see Dawn Marie. Is it Dawn Marie?
Yes.
As a guest referee between Lola Vice and Jada Parker, of course. And that's going to be a hardcore match. That should be very interesting. We've seen Jada in that match, in that type of match before. She's dangerous. It's going to be interesting to see what she does there. We've also seen at the end of NXT last week, RVD kind of get himself in the middle of Wes and Javon Evans, and was like, "Oh, I know what I'm doing next week." So I'm guessing we're gonna get a triple threat match with those three. That is gonna be very interesting.
Yep.
That is about to be very interesting. And I think for me, this is the main thing I wanted to talk about as well. this whole thing with Wes and Javon. We spoke about 2 weeks ago, following, I think it was the first, maybe the second week of NXT on the CW network, talking about what Javon's going to do next. He's had his tag team title opportunity, unsuccessful, and we said the only other thing that looks immediate is a feud between him and Wesley. It looks like we're clearly getting that now. We're clearly getting that. They had a big, massive ruckus backstage and all the rest of it. Wesley was, part of the decision, and in terms of him missing out on the tag team championship. How far does this go? How important could this possibly be for either guy? And whoever comes out of it, and I'm thinking very far ahead here, but whoever comes out on top of it, where do they go? What happens next?
I think Wesley needs to head to the top title, to the NXT Championship. But this is ultimately what we asked for. With Javon, it doesn't have to compete for anything, but more kind of character stuff. See him in different situations, see his patience be tested, and things of that nature. And I feel like we're getting that with the stuff with Nathan Fraser last week as well, and now this stuff with Wesley is good. However, I think the real story is going to happen between Javon Evans and Cedric Alexander. And I cannot wait for that, because they've already started, Javon said something to him a couple of weeks back about, you have to be a bit edgy, be a bit bad sometimes. And like Cedric Alexander is kind of holding on to that comment sort of thing, and a couple of things he said back. And I feel like we could use this as an opportunity to revive Cedric as well. Because I was very happy with the idea of him coming to NXT, but then being kind of placed into this Uncle Cedi box straight away, I was like, no, that's not that's not what he's here to do. Please, come on, like. I understand he's another statesman for Javon, especially being 20 years old. But I think the real feud is between Javon Evans and Cedric Alexander, and it'll be a slow burn, and we'll get to it. And hopefully it does a lot for both men to kind of lift the card. That could be something that helps Cedric become a champion, North American champion or something like that. And maybe Javon dethrones him later on down the line for something like that. So, I think this Wes stuff is just kind of in for now sort of thing. And to maybe give Wes a big win before going after a title maybe. But Javon and Cedric Alexander is something that's brewing.
It's weird, like as soon as you mentioned the whole thing of Cedric being, possible North American champion, and I look at the landscape of NXT, we've talked about all the ladies and all the rest of it as well, and it almost feels as though every area is too good apart from the top. So we're struggling to find
the top of what? Sorry,
the top of the card. So in the men's division, because we're struggling to find. I know you've mentioned it week in, week out.
I'll be brutally honest. I'm not impressed. Yeah, I'm not impressed. But yeah,
same. It feels. It just feels dead. It feels like there's something missing massively. Gerard, do you feel there's any way of us getting there? Like, so we've got this whole thing with Javon and Wes, and we're saying that Wes could easily, compete for the NXT Championship. We've got Obafemi, who's just lost the North American Championship. I mean, it looks like he's kind of going to start a team with Nikita Lyons soon enough. That's what it looks like is happening there. Kind of reminds me of Bobby Lashley and Thingy back in the day. Oh, mate. Anyway, how do we build these guys in order for us to feel as though the top of the card is good again?
Well, I think we're in the process of building them as we speak, which is where I think, to some degree, if you'll notice, a night as big as tomorrow night's going to be is not featuring an NXT Championship match,
right?
And so I think one of the things that's happening is this is where you showcase what's really, really good, and you give it time to build to get to that top spot. So, we may not have to come out with a challenger immediately for Trick Williams. There are other things that you could potentially get him to do, like what we're seeing right now. It could arguably be why an Ethan Page doesn't move up to a Raw or SmackDown, or even them grabbing someone from Raw or SmackDown to come down and challenge Trick in the interim while this mid card is being ultimately elevated. It does remind me a lot of, what was going on during the Attitude Era. People forget that the mid card in the Attitude Era was Triple H. It was The Rock. It was The Undertaker. It was Stone Cold. They were all it was Owen Hart. All of them fighting for the Intercontinental Championship in 97, 98. People hear those names now and they're like, there's no way. But that's how that was happening. So I think we're seeing the same kind of build happening in NXT right now. While we, get to that point where we can start funneling some of them up to the top of the card to ultimately challenge for the NXT Championship.
This might sound harsh, but I don't think, like, if you could easily at this point take off all the men's wrestling on NXT and just have a women's show.
Easy.
It could run because they've got established champions, championship contenders, pretenders to the championship, a mid card, like little smaller tag teams and factions. It's got all the parts, and right now the men do not have that. With Trick Williams, you have a big character and the face of the company, but right now, obviously, the match side of things we're still kind of developing and working on. And yeah, they're bringing in a Bubba Ray. They had an Ethan Page, like a Joe Hendry, like. I don't know, like we're not getting, once upon a time, a match we're going to see on Wednesday, you'd see an Adam Cole and an Aleister Black going after this title. And, we had those kind of names around it. Like, again, there's potential for one day, maybe a Ricky Starks finally, is freed from his AEW contract and can come in here sort of thing. But even that, Ricky Starks can't do it on himself. Like, sometimes this is where the argument is, the PC is obviously brilliant. I'm a big PC. If no one has ever found out, like I love the PC and everything it stands for. The whole WWE ID thing that we've recently seen that's gonna come in, I think it makes sense. Like why not? But sometimes you still need that 10% of your overall recruitment to be, I'm gonna go and get a ready-made guy. Like it can't all just be in-house production and stuff like that. In every sport you have transfers or you have trades because there are some people elsewhere that can just come in and make an impact immediately. We can't grow everyone from grassroots. So I think that's where they are with this division. It's in the works, like Gerard was saying, but we need to just go and get some guys right now that are just going to prop this up and set that men's division on fire like the women's is.
Yeah, and I think they that was the intention in bringing in Ethan Page. It was a nice surprise, but I think it's already kind of run its course very easily, very quickly. Run its course. Yeah, definitely. And he could easily feature on the main roster. He could easily go up there. I think they need to bring, probably maybe have done a little bit more with a Sean Spears in this time. I think he could have possibly been someone. Yeah, of course. And while the arc of Rich Holland has been good, propelling him to the NXT Championship for me is a bit too fast. Him taking out the Chase Uber, brilliant, perfectly done. The time it took, the stories, all the rest of it, perfect. But for then him to go after Trick Williams the same night, way too fast. It doesn't feel believable, and I don't know. There's something that just doesn't work there, and it's difficult to see anyone. It's going to take a few weeks, maybe a month or two, to actually build someone to where you're like, right, they're going to beat Trick, or they need to beat Trick, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a tough one, and I think for me the only person that's there is Obafemi, but they're still holding on to him and Tony D. So yeah.
The problem is Obafemi, in terms of what he's just done in the mid card, he can easily do that at the top championship level and obliterate everyone else. And then it's like, then what sort of thing?
We'll have the same problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I know they brought in this guy to add to obviously the big storyline on the main roster, but someone like a Jacob Fatu would have been perfect to come in, become champion in NXT, rule the roost for a bit. And maybe the better question is, who are those big indie stars right now? Are they still on the indies, or do they work for an AEW or a WWE already? Like no one really right now is even coming to my.
Let me tell you who would be. Let me tell you who would be amazing in that space.
Go for it,
Darius Carter.
Okay, yeah.
Darius Carter would be incredible in that space. He could. Number one, he could take the title from Trick Williams. He could make Trick Williams work. He is the heel of all heels. He can talk. He is technically sound. He is somebody who has done well in a lot of different spaces and could absolutely go in there and wreak havoc on NXT right now.
And even with this whole thing with TNA, I think the only two people I can think of, you could probably add a third, to be fair. Jake something. I think he's got enough in him. They'd have to kind of repackage him a little bit, maybe. Jake something, maybe. But Hammerstone was the only other one. But Obafemi already beat him in like.
He's already cleared him.
That hurt, man. That hurt, because he could have been that guy to come in and challenge for the NXT Championship straight away, very easily. You know what I mean? History.
So those are all good names, like
size, all of that.
Darius Carter is a good name. I'm just thinking, okay, but Darius Carter isn't of, let's say, the name value of what Aleister Black was or an Adam Cole was at the time. In terms of, does he have all the tools? Yes. But, I think we just need some of these name people. And that's what I'm just thinking. I don't think a lot of them are still just readily available on the indies now anyway. So, yeah, maybe it's a tough position all round to be in. But yeah, they need to do something, I think, because Bubba Ray's there for one night, he'll go away, and then what? Because Trick Williams versus Ridge Holland, I don't know,
and or Trick versus Ethan again.
Yeah, I don't know.
Even Wesley right now, it's kind of like you kind of have to prove it a little bit more. You know what I mean? Not that it would be a bad thing, not that it would be a bad match, be a brilliant match, all of that. But yeah, it's still kind of like, West still needs to do some things in order to kind of like make us feel as though he should be NXT champion. So yeah, they're in a tough position, but everyone gets, has that moment in time where that happens. I mean, we were saying the same things about the women's division at one point. Look at it now. There's almost there's literally too many. Yeah. So it can change and it will change, but we're just in this position at the moment, and we'll see where we go from there. But I think, as you said, Max, I think one of the solutions would be to find someone who is kind of ready-made, not necessarily to challenge Trick like straight away. As we said, I don't think there's anyone like that, but still someone who can kind of bring in a little bit similar to how Ethan Page was brought in, but yet a little higher than an Ethan Page. You know what I mean? I think Ethan Page was thrusted into that space, not necessarily I'm not going to say deserving, because it's not, he's not bad, but it wasn't expected. You know what I mean? For him to go, be thrusted in that high on the card straight away. So it is what it is. Anyway, with all that said, our time is gone. You've been watching WrstlXtra on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see us every single week, of course. And of course, see when this guy Mex puts out all of his reactions and things to WWE, AEW, everything else in between, as well as his exclusive interviews with WWGP as well. Follow them, WWGP on YouTube. You can also find Mex with the Mandem on the Wrestling's YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to see their show every week, as well as their extra content as well. You can find Mex on WrestleManiac.uk on Instagram, WrestleManiac.uk on X, WrestleManiac UK on Instagram. You can find this guy, Gerard Bonner. Just say his name, he will appear. Or you can type in Bonafide and you will find him on all things. You can also find him on his own show, The Faction Show, as well as WWT Live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can also find Gerard doing all of his commentary, broadcasting for IWE, Arshay Wrestling, Southern Honor Wrestling. I almost said Southern Caribbean Wrestling.
Oh, wow.
All Caribbean Wrestling. The Nightmare Factory, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, and anywhere else he will appear. You can find me in the one place you need to find me, which is Black Wrestle Alliance on Instagram. Guys, we will see you again next time.